So I'm here in my studio and I'm going to be going live this morning. I'm so excited to be here and I'm very nervous. So I'm here all by myself. So I'm going to be running the camera and the machine by myself. So if you have a question, it might take me a second to get to you or, maybe notice the comments. So anyhow, I'm going to be quilting this quilt right here. It was made by Marsha and I'm going to be custom quilting it today. I'm going to be using some ruler work and some free motion swirls and stuff to get this done. I don't know how far we're going to get, but I'm going to quilt until I run out of battery, probably. And I think I'm at like 95%. So we got a ways to go. Also, I don't know how the sound is really going to work out because it's like minus 20 outside right now, which is about -5 Fahrenheit, I think, or 4 Fahrenheit. So it's pretty chilly and my studio is not very well insulated. So I might have to turn on a heater sometime in between. It's kind of funny because I actually had to warm up my heater this morning. How does that work? Anyhow, so let's go down to the machine and do some stitching. Also, I hope this camera doesn't go upside down. If it does go upside down, I might have to restart the live. So let's see. That's the view. It's not awesome. Okay, let's see if it'll flip. Hello from Idaho. Must be cold there too, eh? Okay. Everybody can see all right? Is it upside down or is it looking all right? I hope it looks okay. Let's turn the machine on. So I'm going to be getting started. I'm going to be using my rocket ruler from Silly Moon Quilt Company. This is my favorite ruler for ditch work and for most of my straight edge work. But I am also going to be using another ruler from the Quilted Pineapple because I've got some long lines to put in today. So those are most of the rulers I'm going to be using. I think I might also use this number 8 Quilted Pineapple. I'm going to be doing some continuous curve style designs in some of these in the patchwork areas of this quilt. And I got my nice warm sweater on that my mom made me. All right. I always ditch my work. It's a little difficult with the light, but it's not bad. This ruler to guide this design. You don't want to be pushing against this, trying to control it from the machine from down here. You're just going to end up making a mess of things. So I simply use it to help me with my spacing here. When I start a piano key off, I always like to come down to the bottom of the machine. Put my first line in for a piano key. It's just easy because then the line ends up dead straight, which is pretty nice. This is a pretty busy fabric to be working on, so that's why I'm doing a piano key, so I can kind of keep track of what's going on a little bit. In the piano key, I'm spacing at 3/4 of an inch and then 1/4 inch. And I'm traveling up. It's about 3/4 of an inch. The thing is like we are working on, like I'm working on a busy fabric here. So even if this is off by like 1/8 of an inch or something, nobody's really gonna super notice it. I just have to do the best I can to be able to see where I'm going here. And yes, traveling like that does take practice. So I'm using glide thread in my top today and also in my bobbin thread. And this is a glide 40 weight. I'm using white in the top. I think it's just plain white number. And then in my bobbin, I'm using cloud. Yeah, I'm using cloud in the bobbin as a color. I always match my bobbin thread to my backing, and I have a real good handle on my tension. One of the reasons why I have such a good handle on my tension is because I don't change out thread types or weights very often. I will switch to a 60 weight thread on occasion when I'm working on a panel or something else, but normally I stick to a 40 weight thread. I just have to do some rolling. I'm working on a Handi Quilter Avante, so I've actually only got about it's 18 inches. I've got about 15 inches of space when I've got my ruler foot on. So it's not really that much room, so I do a lot of rolling. But the reason why I work on such a small machine is I actually wear glasses and contacts. I've got terrible eyesight, so I kind of like being closer to the machine. Like, I don't like it to be too far away. And the other reason is it's just a lighter machine. I like the weight of it. I've been working on it for so long. Sometimes when I play with like the larger machines, the weight kind of surprises me. See how I'm just kind of like bumping out and then bringing my shoulder up? That's really what I'm doing. I'm not pushing the machine. One of the reasons I haven't done live quilting before is because I kind of thought it might be boring to some people doing this piano key. I mean, it's going to take a while, but I mean, that's the truth, and custom quilting does take a lot of time to do. So now I am coming up to this corner. I forgot to draw this line here, so I'm actually going to just continue this diagonal line. Just got to get my marking pen. I normally do mark all my quilts before I mount them. Of course, too close. Before I mount them, but sometimes I miss. There we go. All right, I'm just going to take a look and see if there's any questions here. Looks great. Something, oh, crud. I can't see the chat. I'm not sure how to see the chat, guys. Somebody make a comment. Sometimes it picks up like when the comment comes through. Well, when this is over, I'll go through the comments and make sure that I answer any questions. I saw something about Texas, but that's about all I saw just now. So when I come up to this corner, I'm just going to use this line that I just drew there. I'm going to bump up to that line, and then I'm going to go straight up and continue the piano key into this corner here. Just using this diagonal line just kind of as a guide to help me space everything out nicely. There's other ways to do this piano key in the corners, but this is my preferred way. It's pretty foolproof and it looks good. And again, I mean, you can't really see it quilting here anyhow. Hopefully we'll get to some more visible quilting soon here. Another thing you might want to note is that in these little white triangles that I've got going on here, you'll notice that there's 3 blue dots. I've got one here, and one here. And those are for my dot to dot design that I'm doing. And the reason I've got my starting point here is that when Marsha adds on her binding, it's hopefully not going to cut off too much of my design. And it's about a 1/2 inch up. This is a tough place to work in with a ruler because I've got my red snapper so close, so I'm kind of bumping into it a little bit. Sometimes you can do this by just getting a smaller ruler to deal with that. But I don't think I'm going to need one today. I think I'll be fine for today. And if you do get bored watching me here, you can just come back in a little bit. Just pop in and out and see where I'm at. Like I said, I'm going to go until my battery dies. I've got a reusable camera here, so it should be a fair ways. We should get most of the elements stitched out before we get I was recently on a quilting cruise with Susan Smith and Beth Ann Namish. We were doing some longarm quilted stuff, and when we were on the cruise, we actually had longarm machines on the boat, which I don't think had been done before. And if it has been done before, it most definitely had been done on those types of seas. Because I'll tell you, trying to longarm quilt on a ship was not something I would recommend most people do, especially those who aren't sure if they're going to get seasick, which is me. I got seasick. But the cruise was super fun. We had Beth Ann giving all kinds of awesome lectures and trunk shows. Susan did some live quilting. I think she's the only one who got like an extended amount of quilting on there. And I'm not sure. She was kind of a different color when she finished up, but it was awesome. It was. If you haven't seen Susan Smith, she's probably like the original like live longarm quilter. She does lives, I think, every other Friday or once a month Friday. I'm not exactly certain, but she's just amazing and is a huge inspiration for me, pushing myself to become just a more visible quilter and to share a lot more. And I just love her for that. And Dave too. Dave's all right too. That's her cameraman. I wish I had a cameraman. Okay, I guess he probably does more than just cameraman, but you know, damn it. I get asked quite often, like, what kind of batting I'm using, and this was provided by Marsha. So, and I'm pretty sure it's just like an 80-20 blend or something. The thing is that most people don't realize that I've got very artistic, or like I've got this lighting in this room that really makes the relief of the quilting stand out a lot. And that's really what you're seeing more than the type of batting that I'm using. It's just the lighting. And I achieve this lighting for all of my photos and my videos by turning off the lights and having a side window. It's a nice sunny day today, which is probably why it's so dang cold. But so I have a nice shade on the window. Here, I'll just take 1 sec, I'll show you. So here's this machine setup. See, this is my window. And I've got this diffused light coming in and the light's off. So that's why we can really see the relief here. I think it's looking pretty good. All right, get you back in there. little chilly here today, but it's not too bad. It's not too bad. I'm heading up to Prince George, British Columbia in April. I'm going to be doing some lectures up there in case anybody's up in that area wants to come down and see me. The Willow Basket is going to be hosting me. That's a quilt shop up there. We're going to have a good time. I won't be going to QuiltCon though. That's unfortunate. I really wish I could get to QuiltCon one day. It looks like a super blast. I do love modern quilting. I don't know if I would necessarily call myself a modern quilter though. I mean, yeah, I would call myself a modern quilter, but I'm not like just a modern quilter. I've got a real soft spot for scrappy quilts. I don't know why, but I just love myself a scrappy quilt. Maybe it's because I'm so scrappy. So I'm actually from Prince George. I don't know if anybody knows that. So that's one reason why I'm heading back up there. As well. I didn't always grow up down south here. If I mentioned it, I did mention it, but I don't know if everybody heard it. But this is my favorite ruler. It's by Cinnamon Quilt Company. It's a ditching ruler, and the reason I love this ruler so much, just for your information, is it's got a beveled edge. So it's not like a hard edge, it's kind of rounded a little bit. So it just feels a lot more comfortable in my hand. So I can use it for a really long time without getting crampy fingers. Sorry that I can't see any of the comments. I really don't know how to turn them on. But like I said, I'm going to come back and I'll answer all the comments after the live's over. And hopefully I'll learn enough about this. This is my very first live. Hopefully I learned enough that I can actually take a look at comments next time. And if you could, just let me know if you do want it next time, like, after I get over this boring piano key. I mean, piano keys are super boring, but honestly, it's one of my favorite ways to finish on an outside board in particular, just because you can cut it off and you don't end up cutting off the design. Like if you have to square up a quilt at the end, like if you cut it off here, like other than this design I'm doing in here, it wouldn't really matter so much. So you can square up a quilt so much and not screw up the design here, which I think is kind of important. Let's get this up here. Yardstick stops me from hitting this thing here with my ruler table or my ruler plate. I mentioned it before, I'm not sure if everybody was here, but I've got 3 dots in this triangle for my dot-to-dot design. And the reason I've got it kind of up here is that so when this quilt does get squared, or when the binding goes on it, that we're not going to lose this design. Hopefully, most likely we won't. And I've come up about 1/2 inch into the quilt so that design stays visible. So I have to extend a diagonal line through this area here so that I can bump my piano key up to it as I turn this corner. So I'm just going to draw that in there. This is the carrying pen. It's just a blue water soluble pen. Oh, here, some comments came up here. I use automation when quilting, when I free motion quilt, or do you need to release your belts? I don't. I have two machines. One's computerized and one isn't. Oh, crud. I just did something here. Okay, so this is not a computerized machine at all. I have another machine that's computerized that I do that on. But if you do have a computerized machine and you wanted to quilt on it, you would have to release your belts. Your belts will impede your ability to move the machine as freely as it could be. So yeah, if you do want to quilt with a computer on it, free motion, just release your belts. And then you get full control back again. And it's going to feel a little bit weird because it's significantly looser than when you take out the belts on. Okie dokie. Here. So I'm going to come down to this line and then I'm going to go across to finish my piano key edge here in the corner. I'm so sorry I can't read the comments. I kind of suspected I wouldn't be able to. But that's also just me and being kind of dumb with technology. Technology is not my strong suit, as I'm sure it's not for most people, but yeah. So I really appreciate a little bit of forgiveness or leniency there. Oh, I'm stitching in 12 stitches per inch as well, yeah. So 12 stitches per inch. I'm using Glide White on the top as my top thread, and I'm using Glide Cloud as my backing thread, or as my bobbin thread, and I'm using 40 weight in both. It's kind of my go-to thread and weight, and it's largely because then I don't have to mess with my tension too much. You know? So, I mean, I always remember to check my tension before, I get going on a quilt, especially if I've got a high contrast thread in the bobbin. Okay, now I'm just going to change spots here. There we go. So now I'm going to start putting it down with my piano key. And then finally we'll get into some of the meat of this thing here. I have pre-marked this quilt. I always like to do my quilting or my marking before I get it on the machine. I like to do my marking on a flat surface so that all my straight lines are straight and nothing is distorted by any of the sag or stretch that happens after it's mounted to a machine. And I do that with all of my custom, especially the big Judy Niemeyer quilts. I pre-mark all of those quilts, and I always make sure that I have a plan. Having a plan is important, I believe, in custom quilting. It's just to help make a quilt cohesive. So I'm just going to roll up a little bit here because I've only got about 15 inches of space to work with on my machine. I just want to get past this last little triangle. Also, I am floating my quilt top. It's my preferred method, and also this is my preferred way to do my basting is I use a ruler. I just like using a ruler for basting instead of my fingers, and that comes from stitching through my finger. I was going along like this, trying to smooth out some edges once, and it went up and it went down, and it went like straight through this finger here, and it went out the other side, and I had to pull the thread through, and it was really gross. Yeah, I panicked. I didn't get any blood on the quilt though, which was kind of a surprise. I think maybe it was just like the shock of it all. So now I always make sure to use a ruler when I'm basting my quilts. And these ditching rulers work really nice for that because you've got this deeper side to it. So, it kind of like holds the fabric, at the top and the bottom, which I don't know. I thought it was kind of a good idea. It was a good idea at the time.
Now I do it all the time. Sorry, I was just the camera for a second, see if my arm was in the way. Little wibble wobble. I mentioned earlier, like, this is such a busy fabric that even if this piano key isn't dead perfect, it's gonna be really difficult to see. I mean, you can hardly even see it right now, eh? So, I'm not super terribly concerned. I'm just trying to make sure that the lines stay parallel with the quilt. Marsha did a really good job making this quilt nice and square, so I don't have too much to contend with on that front. Okay, so now I've reached the end of my quilting space, so I'm just gonna go around the ditch here. I do have my lights off, okay, so also that is playing a little bit of a key on I'm not staying perfect in the ditch. Sunshine. I love the stitch ruler. I always ditch my work. I think that ditching makes a much more, it just makes a nicer quilt. I mean, as a custom quilter for hire, you know, you're paying for a service, and I want to make sure that I'm providing the best finish that I possibly can for my clients. And so, in my opinion, that's ditch work. Ditch work definitely does take time and practice. It's definitely a skill that you can develop it. It's not like this takes any talent, you know what I mean? If anybody could leave a comment about how the sound is. I am just working with the camera, microphone, and everything, so there's no extra equipment here. But I would appreciate just knowing if maybe it's something I should look into adding, you know, with live quilting So I just did do around this inner triangle because it's kind of along my ditch path, you know, and then I'm going to go up around here. But I'm not going to necessarily naturally come back into this space. So I'm actually going to stitch this. I'm going to stitch this right away. Oh, and I've lost my. There we go. All right, sorry. So yeah, I'm going to stitch this area out right now. You can see that I've got some markings on here too. I've marked it here, so I've measured down 1.5 inches, 1 inch, and 3/4 of an inch, and that's because I'm going to be adding a design within this middle one. I've also marked all of these other spaces. I'm going to be doing some dot-to-dot quilting. So I'm just going to check, yeah, this ruler is going to make it there. So I'm just going to use this ruler space here. Simple and effective. Oh, I had a little bit of a wobble there. That's okay. Actually, before, I'm just going to come into this now. motion swirls in these big empty areas. So that's what we're gonna do here. Anybody making comments? I am running the machine and the camera. I'm not able to really keep up with the comments. And this is my first live, and honestly, I don't know how. So I'm gonna come back and like respond to all the comments afterwards. I'm so sorry about that. This is the blunt swirl, I think is kind of what it's been dubbed now, which I really like. I think it's kind of a nice little modern look to it as opposed to like having the pointy end here. I like the blunt look. And I also think that this blunt look goes along really well with this kind of blunt piano key sort of design that I've got going on there. Okie dokie. Okay, so now that this space is finished up, I'm going to head back up and keep my ditch work going along the outside of this piece star block. Don't get too hung up on finding like the perfect path for your quilting. There's really, I always find the perfect path at about the end of the quilt. You know, like it's impossible to find the perfect path, like especially at the very beginning of the quilt. So don't get too hung up on it. If you're spending too much time thinking about what path you need to take, you need to just break thread. There's no reason to get all hung up on it. So now I'm over in this corner, and this is where I'm going to be starting the design for this corner. So I'm going to get my bigger ruler. This is my favorite ruler. It's the Rocket Ruler by Silly Moon Quilt Company. I use it for almost everything, but sometimes that ruler won't reach. So this is the Quilted Pineapple 12-inch ruler. Oh, I don't know if this is upside down or backwards, but anyway. It's a longer ruler. It's about 12 inches. Well, it's 12 inches long. So I'm going to use that here. I've got my marks all done up throughout here. I've got my first mark at 1.5, my second mark at 1.5, and then my last mark at 1 inch. I like to vary those sizes sometimes just for interest's sake. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to be using this ruler, and I want to kind of keep it at the same angle as this line here because I'm going to do these blunt piano keys again in here. So I'm not going to be like perfect at it, but I'm going to kind of eyeball it, and I'm going to come at it from this side because that's just a much more comfortable position as a right-handed person. touching the foot with this at all. I am moving this independently and bringing the ruler up to help me with my spacing. Ta-da! Woohoo! I think that looks great. Okay, now it's swirl time. That is a big space for swirls. I think it's gonna look really good. I probably could have put like some ghost quilting or some like another thing in here, but I mean it's a pretty simple quilt, and I don't really want to overwhelm it more than I already am with the swirls. So that's why I'm gonna be filling in this giant space with just some really nice swirls. Stitches per inch as well. When doing this design, I always like to take the extra time and put this line in here. I think it's important. I think it makes it look just proper, even if there is a lot of traveling in this particular type of design. I think that's going to look just fine. I got to kind of vary this up a little bit. I need a smaller one. So now that I've got to this point, you know, I don't want to carry on this way because I kind of want to end here so that I can move into the next section. You know, if we're talking about thread path, which I just said don't worry too much about, but it's fine. I'm going to just start kind of filling in this area, coming up here and then coming back to fill that way is kind of my thought pattern here. Particularly like riveting quilting, I know that, but it's also custom quilting, and that is exactly what it is. This is it. It's slow. It's not very fast, you know, and especially if you're going to be working on sort of these modern style quilts that don't have a ton of elements to it. that ability to do some repetitive work in order to be a long arm quilter. I feel like, you know, gonna get lost a little bit in the monotony of it all, which is hilarious because it's such a creative thing, but you know, it's also not. That space filled in. So now I'm just going to repeat that in the other spaces here and carry on to the next part of the quilting. If you don't want to, I just listen to books I always listen to books. I can see some comments here now. Oh, now they've faded away again. I'm not sure how to mess with those settings to make them stay up. I wish I could. I also listen to books while I quilt. I use the Libby app, and that works super well. I go through probably like, you know, 3 or 4 books a week, maybe more, depending on how much quilting I'm doing. So yeah, books are the best, like I think. Although sometimes in the summertime, I can get rocking out to some music, you know, like if it's a Friday or something, I definitely crank the tunes and going there in the summer. Not so much. Oh, I just broke a thread. Not so much in the winter. All right, my first thread break. Oh, and scissors. There we go. I'm going to turn my light on here so I can see what I'm doing. There's my bobbin thread. See, it's that blue color I talked about. I don't know if you can see it really well on the screen. So I'm using white thread in my top, and I'm using a light blue thread in my bobbin. They're both glide thread. Do some stay stitches right there and carry on. Okay. I can't remember what I was talking about. Probably audiobooks, I think. Anyways, and tunes. So you can see that I'm keeping these bumps parallel to this center line, or these blunt piano keys parallel to the center line, and the other ones were parallel to the center line that was going diagonal. And I think this is going to give a really cool effect to the star, drawing the eye towards the center of the quilt. That's why I do it this way. Swirls just to give me enough room to actually make a realistic attempt at a swirl. That's a little off, but that's not that bad. Swirls that I think is hilarious and interesting is that everybody hates their own swirls. You know, you look at somebody else's swirls and you're like, oh my God, they're so beautiful. And then you look at your own swirls and you think they're absolute just crap. But the reality is everybody's looking at your swirls and thinking they're really good too. So don't give yourself too much grief about how your swirls look. We all think our swirls suck. There we go. All right, next spot. Big ruler back again. So I'm working on a Handi Quilter Avante, which is a pretty small machine. With the ruler plate on, this machine only has about 15 inches of space, but I really like my small machine. It's nice and light and nice and close to it. So it's just been working really well for me. I do actually have a bigger machine as well. I just like this one better. Now I'm going to do the piano keys. Again, I'm staying parallel with the center line as much as I possibly can. Just kind of run by. I mean, I could use this line kind of right here too, right? You're noticing, but like if I am like a little bit off, I am slightly adjusting my angle, but nobody's really gonna notice too much, eh? I don't know why. I like making sounds. I'm sorry. Woohoo, we're done. Well, done that part. My youngest daughter taught my youngest daughter how to drive, and like the way we kind of kept the tension down was by making like driving noises as we're going, and it's kind of become like a weird bad habit that both of us have got into. You know, we're always making like car noises and brum brum sort of stuff everywhere we go, and it's just a little bizarre right now in the household. We did both survive learning to drive. I should snip this thread off here. I've got a lot of practice at keeping this spacing relatively like even, and it's just practice, you know, and like sometimes mine aren't perfect either, like right there. Oh my god, why did I do it like that? Anyways, but as somebody mentions commented on my video the other day, you know, like we're not pro stitchers, like this is custom quilting by hand. I don't take out every single mistake. Like I'm not going to take this out. If it was like touching a little bit more, or maybe in a more visible space, I would. But that little indiscretion of spacing is totally going to be lost in the overall look of this. So I'm not going to get too carried away with that. But you know, if you're learning sort of how to do this design or how to echo stuff, maybe like a good idea would be to do varying like degrees of echoes, you know, like just be consistently inconsistent. I wonder what that would look like. That's actually kind of a fun idea. I might want to give that a try once. Also something to pay attention to when you're doing, you know, swirls of any sort really, is to try and not do them all the same direction. No, you've got to kind of vary it up a little bit. Sometimes I kind of get like giving her and then forget. And then next thing I know, I've done like, you know, 6 swirls all the same direction and it looks just so mechanical. We want to make it look as organic as possible. I guess you could do that with spacing too, right? Organic spacing. That's what I'm going to call it. It's organic. Oh, now I've lost track of sharks again. Oh, it still looks good. Organic spacing. Whoosh. I'm not really shooting for... Oh, I ran out of bobbin thread. Oh, and I forgot to wind any more bobbins. So I gotta go wind some bobbin, or a bobbin. That's hilarious, because I was like so nervous to do this live today, because this is my very first time doing a live. So I didn't really know how it was gonna go. I think it's going fairly well. This is the rest of the studio. So this is my other machine. It's a Fusion. It's also Handi Quilter. I'm not affiliated with Handi Quilter at all. It just happened to be the machine that was for sale. And this one I call Ursa Minor. You see all my bear stickers? And I call it Ursa Minor because I don't work on it very often. This is Ursa Major. See all my bear stickers? And that's because I do most of my work on this one. Anyhow, this is my bobbin winder area and my cloud thread, or my glide thread in the color cloud. Okay. I'm just gonna go put this away for 1 sec. Just because it's gonna take me a second to get this bobbin wound. So I'll be back in just 1 minute, I think. Thanks. Oh, you love the bears. I also love the bears. So I'll be back. Okay, so I've got my bobbin winding right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this time while my bobbin winds and I'm going to just clean the bobbin area. I'm going to clean the bobbin area and my thing, my bobbin case. I'm going to clean my bobbin case, that's it. This is my nice big brush that I used to do that. I'm also going to oil my machine. Not my machine, I'm sorry. I'm going to oil the hook because I oil the hook just with a tiny drop of oil every single time that I change my bobbin. Okay, so I've got my bobbin here. Oh, I'm sorry, this is my very first live. I've said it a couple times already, I know, but I can't seem to figure out how to see the comments. So I'm going to come back and look at the comments when I'm all done the live, because my camera's most likely going to be dead, but I'm going to come back and read through them and answer any questions. So let's get into this again. That's machine over. Okay, let's go back to the machine. Maybe. There we go. Yeah, there's my bears. Here's the bears on this side. I got all kinds of bear stickers. Very cool. Very cool. Okay, so here's where I ran out. This was a pretty easy spot, but sometimes if my thread runs out, like if I was working on this busier fabric, I usually just leave my snips kind of like there so I can find the spot where I kind of lost it again. So if I can do this without getting in the way of the camera too much, don't think I can, guys, sorry. There we go, maybe. I'm just gonna go back 2 or 3 stitches here, bring up my bobbin thread, back down, and I'm just stay stitching. I don't bury my threads, I stay stitch them, I carry on and snip this tail off. So that's kind of the way that I do it. Sometimes it takes a second to get back in the groove, eh? That's fine. That one's again pretty minor. All right. Let's carry on. Just sometimes when the bobbin runs out, it totally throws me off my game for a couple seconds, where I kind of like get back in the feel of it again, you know? That's true actually for like a lot of designs too. Like if I haven't stitched out swirls in a while, like I'll kind of forget, and it takes like a little bit to get back into it. So, you know, the thing is, like next on my next quilt, I'll probably do these swirls again because I'll be like, oh, I enjoyed them so much and I did such a good job. But you got to be careful that you don't fall into like that kind of a rut, and you got to always be practicing or trying to use a different design, you know, so that you don't just repeat the same thing over and over. And I'm not going to pretend that I don't fall into this trap either, because I really do. I got a real thing for pebbles and stuff, and I just can't seem to get away from them, which is fine because, I mean, who doesn't love pebbles? But, you know, sometimes I feel like I get into a rut too, which is why last summer I did my frames and fillers series on YouTube. Go to my channel, check it out. It's where I used a spinny wheel to pick random fillers to put inside of a quilt block. And I kind of thought that was a pretty fun thing to do. Anyways, I'm actually finished all this background bit. So I'm just gonna take a couple stay stitches here where it's not really obvious, pull out my bobbin thread and move to the next area. Okay, so the next area I'm gonna stitch is going to be these 2 patchwork spaces, and I'm going to be using use a quilted pineapple 8 for this. Now I am going to be doing a continuous curve design. It's not super complicated, but the reason I'm going to use a ruler is because I got a little bit of OCD and I really like the way it looks better. Oh, Paradise, Newfoundland. Oh, I want to come to Newfoundland so bad this year. I got like this wicked camper van and I'm totally going to be driving across the country. I mean, I can't make it this year, but like one of these times I'm coming to Newfoundland for sure. Anyhow, sorry, go back to this. So yeah, I have a real problem. I really like to control my continuous curves. I can do them freehand, but I definitely like it to do it better with a curve if I have one available. Now, I'm just going to see if I can remember how I wanted to do this. I don't know. How did I want to do this? Yeah, I wanted to do it like that. So I have two ideas for doing the continuous curve because I've got two different types of patchwork here. I've got this kind of 9-patch patchwork, and then I've also got this type of patchwork where there's a couple half square triangles. I kind of wanted to treat them the same because they are, you know, similar colors, and they're the pieces that kind of create this star. So I want to make sure that I'm being relatively consistent. So if I go like this, that's how I'm going to do it. Okay, so I'm going to start up here. Put my bobbin thread, stay stitches. I had thought about this quite a lot before I came here. I just kind of had a bit of a brain fart. But I always try and plan out my quilt designs before I get too into it here. So I'm not changing my top thread either. When I do custom quilt, if this was like purple or red patchwork, I would change color. But because it's kind of like these lighter sort of pastels with these white accents to it, I'm going to keep my white thread and not worry too much about it. I don't want to quilt too much on this quilt, you know, like it is still supposed to be a baby quilt. Oh, I missed the ditch there pretty bad. Oh well. Moving on. Because of the weird shape of this triangle star thing, it is just going to take a little bit of finesse to get all the bits and pieces in there. Thread path, right? Now, I'm looking at this, and this is actually kind of a big space to leave open. I'm not sure if I love that. You see what I'm seeing here? Like, this is kind of big. What I could do is stitch it in the ditch, but then I'd have to ditch everything, and I don't think I want to do that. I think I'm just going to add an extra line in here. It's actually kind of fun because it's like stars. Okay. Well, that was design on the fly. Which wasn't the plan, but that's okay. I should have realized it. Look at how handy dandy that is, eh? Having the same curve on both sides. I'm just whoosh, 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 whoosh. I think that's awesome. Okay. I'm just looking to make sure that I caught everything. I think I did. All right. That was a little messier than it should have been, but that's all right. Well, now that I know what I'm doing, see, like, that's the other part, right? You know, you'll find your thread path by the time you get to the top. You'll know exactly what you're doing. Sorry, I'm just trying to pay attention to where I've been and how I've gone. And it's taken a second. That's all right. That was the wrong way, wasn't it? Yeah. I think I've done this all wrong. See, because I got a center here and I kind of made a star here. Center here, and this goes around instead of a star. Darn, I'm going to pick this out. Yeah, I wasn't paying enough attention. So, do you see what I've done here? See, I've got a center star here, and I kind of went out, and I was just kind of giving her. Well, I've kind of done the opposite here, and I've got like a shape here with a star in the middle. And that's what I want it to look like. I don't want this here at all. So this line is this line has to come out, and this line has to come out. So it's just this piece and this piece here. And then the rest can stay. Yeah. And I am going to pick this out because this is Marsha's quilt. This is not my quilt. If it was my quilt, I might not, but it's not my quilt. This won't take too long once I get it going. Here we go. Here, I'm just going to turn on my light so I can see what I'm doing. There's my bobbin thread right there. That's kind of a nice thing about having a different color bobbin thread is that you can see it a little easier when you're going to take something out. Okay. So I'm just going to stop right there. Now I am going to be coming back to this middle part again, I think, maybe. So I'm not going to be too concerned about not getting too many threads out. Bobbin thread. There we go. It's okay to take out quilting. I don't know if everybody knows that or not, but I rip every single quilt I do. I always make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. So it's just, I don't find it to be that big a deal. But I'm really happy I caught it though. I wonder if I'm going to go look at all the comments and everybody's going to be yelling at me. Sam, you did it wrong. That's okay. I did do it wrong. I like this seam ripper. This is my favorite seam ripper. What is it? Where does it go here? It's called a seam fix. I don't know if you can see it there. Anyways, I like it because it's got this nub on it. And after I'm done picking, I kind of just rub this nub over. It helps erase the little holes. And it also kind of picks up any of those stray little threads. Okay, so now I'm just going to take a quick look-see, make sure that I've got the right path here. See, I think, look, I missed a line right here too. Bloody complicated. Okay. All right. I'm just going to quickly come back here because I missed a line. This is so funny because if it wasn't a client quilt, I probably wouldn't care. But it is a client quilt, and I want to make it the best I can possibly make it. Okay, so that line's in there now. Yeah, I've picked out a ton of quilts too. I saw somebody just like sometimes the comments are like popping up and then they disappear so fast. I only catch half of it. And somebody just said that they had to skin half a quilt once. Oh my goodness, I've totally done that as well. Yeah, I've spent almost as much time picking as I have sewing. That is a true statement. Okay, so let's see. Am I back on track here? I think I am. So I'm going to go down this way. Okay, so because I'm paying attention to this. I'm going the opposite direction of this, which is kind of funny. I think it's fine. So I'm going to go down this way and then down this way. Okay. Okay. All right. I'm not lost anymore. Stay stitches. And it's chirping at me. I'm going to have to try and work a little bit on that, a little bit. That's okay. Luckily, we've got quite a bit of busy fabrics here, so you're not really seeing too much of my backtracking, which is just fine. Okay, so this one is going to go close. I'm going to have this down to a science. Snip that before I run it over. And back. Okay, now I think I've got all the lines. Woohoo! Okay, I was successful. Sorta. We were mostly successful. Okay. This is going to be really visible on the back. Like when I'm done quilting, I'm going to just take a quick peek underneath this and make sure like I'll be able to see any lines. The backing fabric is something that's not too terribly busy, so this is going to be quite obvious on the back. So that's okay. So I can carry on now. So the next step is I'm going to roll. I've kind of completed as far as I possibly can, so it's time to move the quilt up and get to the middle. Pick up all my tools. Has anybody ever rolled anything up inside their quilt before? Oh, that's the worst. I've never rolled scissors or anything up there before, like nothing sharp. But I have rolled a complete ruler up in there, though. I'm just checking my space. Oh, yeah, I got piles of room here. Look at that giant machine. Okay. So now I'm just taking my quilt. I'm smoothing everything, making sure I don't have any ripples or bumps, making sure that my borders are straight as they can be. Everything's looking nice and square still. I don't have channel locks on this machine. I do have a 0 center tape ruler, but I saw somebody was asking, okay, so this is my very first live. I can't see the comments very well. They keep coming up and disappearing. I'm going to come back and answer any questions when the live's over. But I did see somebody ask me what brand I was using. I'm working on a Handi quilter, Avante. It's a bit of an older machine, but she's a beaut. She works real well for me. But I don't have a lot of space. I've got about 15 inches of workable space once I get the ruler plate on. So the ruler plate is here, and here's the bar. See, it's kind of takes up quite a bit of room here. But it's got about 18 inches. It's supposed to have about 18 inches. I'm attaching my red snapper sort of clamps. I'm using these ones. So I'm just attaching those to the thing here. I don't know if I can, you can kind of see. So I'm getting those on there. I don't have a ton of extra backing, but if anybody works as a professional long armor, they know that enough is never really enough, is it? And then I've got my yardstick. Well, it's actually not a yardstick. It's just a piece of broken trim. Anyways, I got a piece of broken trim here, and I've got it underneath, and it's sitting on my back bar and my belly bar here, and that is helping to lift this up so that my ruler plate can kind of glide underneath it a little bit so I don't bump into it. It's a pretty handy dandy little tip. Okay. And I am also floating my quilt tops, so now I'm going to have to baste down the sides of each one. So everything's looking nice and good, so I'm going to do that. I always start at the bottom when I'm going to be basting. And I always use a ruler when I baste as well, because I stitched through my finger once, and I am not doing that again. Nope, nope, nope. That was a rather horrific day. I was all alone too, but luckily the needle, I was able to get the needle up, and it's gross. Don't stitch through your finger. This way I can kind of use the ruler to smooth it out a little bit as I go. I should really be putting these side clamps on after I basted. I just remembered that, but this quilt is nice and square anyway. We're gonna be fine. So I'm just going to go over and do the other side. Custom quilting takes time, lots and lots of time. So yeah, I forgot to say that. We should put the clamps on after we baste. Instead of putting tension on the, you don't want to put tension on the back, you know, and then stitch it down. You want to stitch it down, then put the tension on. So I did that backwards over there, but that's fine. I'll do it right over here. So I'm using a ditching ruler here. My favorite is the Silly Quilt Company one. I just really like it. It's got beveled edges. These edges are nice and beveled, so it's really comfortable in my hand. I just really like it a lot. If you want 10% off that, you can use the code Quilting Curve, but I'm not trying to sell you stuff. That's not why I'm here. But I do have the code. All right. So clamps are on, stick is on, and oh, we're still attached. Okay, and we're ready to go. So I will continue my piano key. It's kind of hard to see in this lighting, but I am doing a piano key here. My piano key is based at 3/4 of an inch and 1/4 of an inch. I like that spacing. It's just pretty obvious. Sometimes if you have like a bit of a snafu and your spacing is only like 1/2 inch and 1/4 inch, it just looks kind of like you just messed everything up. It's nice to have like a bit of a bigger separation there. And also I need to do some marking. So I'm just going to be marking, I think it's 1/2 inch, no, 3/4 of an inch. 3/4 of an inch up the side here, 3/4 of an inch up here, and then 1 inch down. This is my dude tool. This is also from Silly Moon Quilt Company. Look at how fast that marking was. Instead of like bringing in a ruler to do it, I love this little guy. So all the pieces, so this one's like 1 inch, this little head here. This piece is 3/4 of an inch, 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, 1/8 of an inch. So you can just like measure your stuff. Or if you forget like, oh, how thick was that line? You can go and like kind of measure it. So I like this little thing. I use it fairly often actually. Marks are more of a guideline than a rule, right? I'm not pushing my machine with my ruler when I'm doing that. I am simply using my ruler to help guide my spacing. Piano key. Yeah, I'm really happy I chose the piano key for here because it's really hard to see. I don't know what you guys are seeing on camera, but if you're seeing what I'm seeing, you're not seeing very much. So because I'm floating my tops, I can kind of see where my, stitch, or where my, as far down as I can go. So I know I can only go to here with my piano key. So I am going to do that. I'm going to go right to here. Now I'm going to move into this area here. Stitching in the ditch always, because it makes a much nicer quilt. It's about that touch feel, when you run your hand across a quilt and you haven't stitched like these seams down, it kind of feels all bumpy, and I don't like that feeling. And I like the way that all the seams lay so much nicer when they're ditched. Like even if your ditch work isn't perfect, my ditch work isn't perfect here. Now, granted, you guys got a bit of a close-up. Nobody's looking this close at the quilt for not on a normal situation anyways. It's not like this quilt is going to be submitted to some huge quilt show where they're going to be analyzing it or anything. Oh, I forgot my marks here too. So here I do need to mark a little bit with this ruler. So it's 1.5 down, 1, and then 3/4. Is that right? I think that's right. Okay. It's not right. That's not right. It's 1, 1 3/4. I forgot. I just remembered. Okay, so it's 1, 1 3/4. Those are the marks I need. All right, back on track. And this one's not going to quite make it. Wait a second. Oh no, I was right. I was right. Okay. These ones were right. And was nervous about, quilting live in front of people, trying to not make any mistakes. That's okay. Mistakes are part of the process. We all need to be thinking. So I'm keeping these blunt piano keys parallel with this center line here as much as possible. Excellent. Okay, so now I'm just going to fill this in with my swirl. Move up here a little bit. So I have a little bit of room to work. I'm working in 12 stitches per inch here. And when I first started quilting though, I worked in 10 stitches per inch, even when I was doing like this kind of quilting. And that's because when you make a mistake, it's easier to pick out 10 inches than it is to pick out 12. So anybody just getting started with custom quilting, I would recommend to work in 10 inches per square inch, because then it's just that much easier. I mean, it makes sense, right? It must make sense. Starting to get a little bit cold in my studio now. That's not bad though. I put on my fleece lined leggings and I got a wool sweater on that my mom made, but it was minus 20 here this morning. And I guess I can go and do that. It was minus 20 here this morning, which is about 4 Fahrenheit, I think. No, minus 4 Fahrenheit. I had to Google that before. All right. Now let's see if I can remember how I did this. I'm going to go this way, this way, this way, this way. I'm going against these guys to go across. Gotcha. Okay. I think what I'll do is I'll do the big ones first. So like these big long ones. If I do this first, then I won't get so lost. Because these I can kind of like do on a track. You know, like I've got, you know, and then I can come back and do sort of the shorter ones afterwards. That makes a lot of sense. See, like I said, don't get too hung up on thread path, because by the time you get to the bottom of the quilt, you'll know your thread path. It'll be too late. Oh, that's terrible, but it's true. Okay, so those are the big ones. See, I've got like all the big main ones in. So now I'm just going to come in and do all these little shorties, and then I won't get lost. Or at least I'll get slightly less lost. Okay, now I'm going to come in. That's not a big deal. Okay. That these fabrics are so busy, so even if I'm not hitting my point exactly, it's not the end of the world, you know. Like I've said already, this is a client's quilt, so I want to make sure I'm doing the best job possible, but I also have to be realistic with my own abilities and just the reality of custom quilting in general. Ta-da! Yay, I did it right. I'm sure I did. I'm positive I did. Sweet. Okay, so I'm going to break thread because I don't feel like trying to find a path again. Okay, let's take a look at it. See? I got it right this time. Looking good. Okay, I like it. All right, so I've got like 5 rulers here right now. I've got so many things going on. Okay, I'm just gonna collect all my stuff, get it out of the way so I don't run over anything. Okay, so I kind of want to just fill in this space. Oh, I should have gone into here when I was there. See? Side path. Okay, I'm just gonna get this done first. So the inside one is the one that has slightly different markings. So that's why I was getting a little bit lost earlier too. So this is 1, 1 3/4 on the inside here. So 1, 1 3/4. Now the thing is, I have pictures of this when I marked this. When I had marked the upper part, I took photos of it, but I kind of forgot that I was going to be using my phone to do the live, so I can't go look back at my pictures as a reference. So that's why I'm trying to remember. Usually I would just go back, look at my photos, and have my reference guide there, but that just didn't work out today. But I'll take note because this is my first live, so everything's just a bit of a learning curve. That's why my studio is called Quilting Curve. I don't know if anybody knew that, but I call it Quilting Curve because of the learning curve that happened when I learned how to quilt. I thought it was a funny play on words, but I don't know. My kids think I'm just, and my kids don't think it was very funny. But what do they know anyways? They're just teenagers. Oh, bobbin thread. Here it is. Stay stitches. And maybe I'll do this first. Yeah, I should probably just do this because I kind of got it in my mind how this is working. So I should do that first because I remember, right? I do remember. I don't remember. I'll do this first. Sometimes when I'm custom quilting, I kind of get into that like spot where I like decision paralysis. Like I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing next or like anything. And it's quite challenging when you get into that spot where you're like, oh no, what do I do next? And you're just kind of standing there staring at your quilt just like a dummy. When that moment comes, I kind of just do whatever I want. I'm like, you know what? I don't feel like doing this continuous curve right now, so I'm just going to do this instead. And that way I can just kind of get just going again instead of just standing there like doing nothing. That's never good. We want to get stuff done. Just snip this thread here. If you guys could let me know in the live if this style is working for you or not, or if you're finding it too fast or too slow. Maybe I'm talking too much or too little. I don't know. Like I would really appreciate your feedback just so I can know if I should do this again. Nobody wants their time wasted, you know? So any feedback is good feedback today. Well, and every day, really. We always need feedback. Constructive criticisms. That's an interesting one here. So as I'm coming up to this point, if you look over here, and I'm not sure how visible it really is, but I've kind of got 2 little bumps in the center, and that's not ideal. It's more ideal to have 1 bump in the middle here. Even if this bump is going to be slightly larger, I always like to just kind of get 1 bump in the center. Just a minor little detail. And something I noticed happened. going to go and rip that mistake out because it's not really a mistake. It's just not necessarily ideal, perfectness of it all. But again, custom quilting, we're not perfect, not a machine. Using a machine. So I am going to go until my phone dies here. We're only at 50. I'm at 58%. So we still got a ways to go. So I'm just gonna go until it dies. Oh, and I'd like to know also if the video is kind of like the quality is okay. I live quite rural, and I'm not quite sure if the Wi-Fi connection is super stellar or not. So that'd be some helpful information from your guys' end. I'll give you cooking tips if you give me video tips. I said earlier, if you were here earlier, everybody hates their swirls. Don't get too hung up on what your swirls look like. Just keep swirling. Sometimes when I get started with my swirls, I'm just like so appalled at how terrible they look. And everybody's like, thinks they're amazing. So just don't be hung up on your swirls. It's not worth your time. Just swirl away. Okay, so we're now come to this center sort of 16 patch in the middle of the star here. The way I did the continuous curve over in the sort of points, I kind of wanted to have this echoed within here. So I think probably the best way to do it is to continuous curve all of the straight lines, like all the piece lines here, and then also do the center or like the continuous curve, diagonally through as well. And I think the way I'm going to do that is by doing all of the straights first and then doing all of the diagonals second. That I think worked out really well in this area and helps me not get lost. So that's, I think, how I'm going to tackle this. So to do straight continuous curve, I'm just going to start getting ready. I do like to use a ruler for my continuous curve. I'm kind of OCD with my continuous curve. I know how to do it, free motion, and it looks fine. It's kind of like swirls. I don't think it looks good at all. So I personally like to use a ruler. I just love the precision that a ruler gives me when I'm doing this continuous curve. To me, it just looks so nice. But when I watch other people do it free motion, I think they look fantastic as well. So, like, who's to say? Well, and then I'm right back down here. I'm just going to do up here too, because I'm right here. Might as well. And here I'm going to do the diagonals first. Yes, that was correct. That was correct. Sorry, I'm just thinking here. I wanted to get... Ow. What was that? There's a snag there. It's not super obvious though. Okay. Holy moly, keeping track of me. Lines, hey? Alright. I got it. It's fine. It takes a lot of practice sometimes, like, to know where you're going. Like I was talking about, decision paralysis is definitely a thing. And if you don't know where you're going, just do what feels right. And don't worry about it. Like, so what if you have to break thread? Like, you break thread, you break thread. Like, get used to it. That's custom quilting. Just break the thread. It's not that big a deal. Unless you're awesome. That was awesome. Okay, I was very happy with that, the way that worked out. Sweet. Okay, now I can continue through here. So it definitely takes longer using a ruler to do a continuous curve, but I don't know, it's not that much longer. Maybe it is. You want to hear something crazy though? I don't know if you've seen any of my videos, but like lots of times, especially like when I'm doing female quilts, I'll use like a 1 or 1.5 inch grid and do continuous curve in that. I use a ruler for that too. You want to see it? I'll show you this. Sometimes when I do continuous curve, I'll use these rulers. This is a 2-inch ruler and this is a 1.5 inch ruler. Like, that is tiny, and it's harder when you're using a round ruler too to do it, but I do it. Those are the 2 rulers I use for tiny stuff. I don't know where these rulers come from. Hold on. If anybody cares. I don't know. I'm not sure. So I'm not sure where these came from, but this is a 2-inch circle, and I know you can find rulers that are 2-inch circles. And this is a 1.5 inch circle. And this came in a huge set. There's this symbol there. Yeah. Anyways, so those are the ones I use. Let's keep going here. Did I get lost? Nope. So I don't know if anybody on the live today is from or lives in or around Prince George, British Columbia, Canada, but I'm coming up there in April and I'm going to be doing some presentations up there. So that's going to be fun. I'm actually from Prince George. That's my hometown. So that's not the reason I'm going there. But it is going to be fun to say hi to my mom. If you're up there, you should get a hold of the Willow Basting Quilt Shop and find out, because they are hosting me. If anybody's interested in a lecture for their guild or something like that, I can do lectures on Zoom and all that. I would prefer to be there in person, though. I feel like I do better in person. Mostly because it's easier to get your sense of humor across, you know? Sometimes the jokes just don't land right. Oh boy. I like doing continuous curve. I don't find this boring at all. Maybe it's just because I'm moving the ruler so much, like different ways and such. Like, it's just fun. I've seen, like, there's so many different ways to do continuous curve, but yeah, I've tried them all. I really have tried them all, and this is still my favorite way to do it. And that's patch continuous curve the first way. Now I'm going to come through and I'm going to do diagonals so it matches sort of what's happening in these other areas. You know, I don't want to just leave this like that. Plus, this is kind of a big space. It's not huge, you know, you don't want to leave anything much bigger than your fist wide open. But, you know, I think the density doesn't really match kind of what's going on in the rest of the quilt. So I'm going to add that extra line in. machine too fast. I gotta remember to slow it down a little bit. I kind of get excited and get given her. I actually turned off the big alarm because the alarm goes off every time I move the machine, which probably throws the stitches off. I should probably move a little slower. Like that is, but oh well. Now I'm just gonna come into the middle and these ones. I'm just going to come back and fill in these ones that I only did half. And that should bring me back to where I am. This, knowing where to go with these two designs is literally just practice. I've done a lot of continuous curve and I've done a lot of this like angled continuous curve. So I just know that like, and this is just a 16 patch. It's not like these triangular ones, you know, where I am still getting lost, even as a professional. Now we're back and come. Okay, cool. I'm going to do some stay stitches here in the corner where it's not visible and pull up my bobbin thread. Give it a snip and a sniff, sorry. And then here, there it is. I think this is looking pretty good. I like how I've got kind of these triangles echoing throughout the entire quilt, like looking at each other. I think it's helping to really draw the eye around the quilt. And that was kind of the idea, you know, like, you know, coming in and, you know, not squaring up, just bringing a lot of attention to the center of the quilt here. That was kind of the idea behind it. Okay, so I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to do this piano key. It belongs down here now on this side. Another thing I'm paying attention to, I should have paid attention over there, I didn't, is which size piano key I have done last. It's really hard to see in this light, but I did a small one, like a 1/4 inch piano key right here. So I'm going to start here on the outside edge, because that way I can travel for the 3/4 of an inch along this edge instead of along the inside edge like last time. Just a thing to think about. It's not a huge deal, but it's just, yeah, just something to think about. See, so now that I'm here on the inside of the quilt, instead of traveling 3/4 of an inch on the inside of the quilt, I can travel just a 1/4 inch, you know, down and then come to the edge here. And now I don't have to really care so much. I can just kind of move around and get to my 3/4 of an inch. If that makes sense, I hope that makes sense. And I have to put the marks in here too still. All right. What was it again? Anybody remember? I don't remember. I think it was 1 inch. Yep. 1 inch there and then 3/4 here from the edge. They're a guideline. They're not an actual in-stone marking. It's just so that when the binding goes on the quilt, I don't cut off, like the entire design doesn't get cut off. That's kind of what that's for, eh? I tried to put one in the middle. I probably should have made it a little wider, but it's not bad. Lovely. Okay. This is such a busy fabric that, you know, if my piano key isn't dead on, you're not going to see it too badly. Like, it's not going to make a gigantic amount of difference if I'm off by an inch or so. So I'm not going to sweat it too bad. Yet another good reason to use a piano, you know, busy fabrics. I like to use a lineal design in, you know, something that's relatively predictable that people can still kind of catch with their eye. So once they start seeing these straight lines in this busy fabric, they kind of start making up straight lines in the fabric. So then it becomes more visible. You know, like once you catch like a glimpse of a straight line, you're like, oh, that's a straight line. Is there more straight lines in there? And then you start looking for them, and so it'll be more visible to people. Again, I know it's not very visible on the camera right now, but it will be in the right light and at the right angle. And I don't know if you know, but I am using these lines on the ruler to space these out. And I am floating my quilt as well. Oh, I should have gone. I'm going to go one more. Then I can be on the inside, eh? There, that's a way to not break thread. But again, I mean, breaking thread is just not being most colors and thread breaks I've done. Well, I don't know how many thread breaks it was, but the most colors I ever used on a quilt, I think, was 15 colors, which is a lot of different colors. I usually do a lot of thread change colors, or color thread changes, yeah, color thread changes on like the big Quiltwork style quilts, because I always like to match the thread if I can. I'm just gonna ditch this whole thing. See, I haven't followed the same bloody thread path the entire time I've been working on this quilt. That's okay. Thing is it's getting done, you know, like this quilt's getting quilted, and that's the most important thing, you know. We do want to be as efficient as possible, but you know, done is better than perfect. I don't know what the heck. Just getting her done is the most important. Sometimes people ask me if I charge for thread color changes, and I don't charge for that. I kind of have that built into my pricing structure. You know, when I'm doing custom quilting, I'm charging quite a lot of money because it's worth it, but also because I don't charge for thread changes. I do charge for bobbins though. I do charge for my thread, and I count my bobbins, and I charge per bobbin. I charge $2.50 per bobbin that I use, because I mean that's covering my top thread and my bottom thread, right? And as we all know, everything is more expensive than it used to be. Just getting this dot to dot in here. Nailed it. It's funny because when I miss my mark, it's a guideline, but when I hit my mark, nailed it. Okay, so again, I'm just going to try and keep my ruler as parallel to this center line as I can, just to keep these kind of straight. You can see these ones are angled because I was angling them to this diagonal line here. So I'm going to angle these to the center line here. So these are kind of like pointing into the middle of the quilt, which is going to draw the eye that direction, is kind of my thought pattern behind this. And that's like the best part about pre-planning your quilts, is because you can have a thought about it. You know, you can really take time and analyze the quilt top to see what's really going to work best. Okay, so now I'm coming into this middle bit, and I really want to put just one in there. It's a little bigger than the other ones, but I think it'll still be better than having two there. But yeah, so anyways, I plan all my quilts. I plan everything. I try, well, clearly I didn't plan it entirely because I kind of got mixed up in here. But I tried to plan at least all of these bigger elements out before I get stitching. I think it makes a more cohesive quilt. And ultimately it saves time at the machine. You know, I use a tablet and I kind of like doodle while I'm watching Netflix in the evening. And that way it saves me time here, and I can just, you know, binge my shows, do my plans, and then get to work. Space these swirls out a little bit so they don't look too much like they're just coming from one direction. You know, it's nice to kind of move to a different area a little bit, just so it doesn't look too stiff. I want it to look organic as possible. All right, so that's done. We're here now. Might as well hop into this continuous curve. So if I remember correctly, I want to do these long ones first, come down into here. Oh, this long one's gonna go opposite to this. Okay, yes, I remember. I'm gonna go look just to make sure I remember. Yeah, I do. Okay. This is the Quilted Pineapple 8 that I'm using for this. I love using a ruler for my continuous curve. I'm not sure who's been here for a while and who just popped in, but I'm just quilting this continuous curve, and I'm doing both diagonal quilting through these blocks, and I'm also doing along these stitch lines, like the shorter spots. So I kind of get a little bit lost. So I'm doing my best not to get lost here. To do that, I'm quilting these diagonal ones first, and then I'm going to come back and do these shorter ones after. I am running the camera and quilting at the same time, so I can't answer any questions. Plus, it's my very first live, and I don't know how to turn the chat on so I can see it. So I'm so sorry about that. But hopefully, if enough people like this or watch this or share it or whatever, then I'll do more. I'm enjoying it. Hope everybody else is enjoying it. Let me know if I'm talking too much or if I'm yammering on about so many things that are so inconsequential. I was just recently on a quilting cruise with Susan Smith, which is like the original sort of live quilter. If you haven't watched her, go watch her. She was spectacular. She's got her sidekick, Dave, who helps with the camera, though. Dave said he wouldn't come up here to help me. I mean, I offered to buy him a beer and everything, and he wouldn't come, but whatever. Just kidding. I'm kidding. But the cruise was excellent. We did a lot of long arm, sort of centric talks, presentations, and Susan quilted live on a cruise ship. I was supposed to quilt live on the cruise ship, but guess who gets seasick? Yeah, I had no idea I was going to get that seasick. But it was fine because everybody was giving me their prescription drugs, which, yeah, I was taking them from strangers. But, you know, I did feel pretty good by the end. Like, I was doing just fine. But I did not get to do any quilting. I even tried drawing while I was on the cruise ship, you know, to show people, like, some drawing designs. And I even struggled doing that. So cruise ships and long arms probably are not gonna fly. They're not really the way to go. But yeah, I got to hang out with some pretty awesome quilters. Really enjoyed it a lot. But one of the things I wasn't prepared for on the cruise ship was the fancy dinners. I mean, I knew there was going to be fancy dinners. There always is, right? So I ordered the lobster the one night, which was delicious. But the lobster shows up, and I look over at the server, and he looks over at me, and like clearly we're communicating really well. And I kind of like was like, "Hey guy, like bring me some butter for my lobster." And he kind of nodded back at me, and he, you know, ran off to grab some butter. That's what I assumed, because that's how you eat lobster, right? Anyhow, next thing I know, he comes back to the table and proceeds to take my lobster out of its shell and cut it up into tiny little pieces for me. Oh my gosh. Like everybody was watching. Like we were all, it was awkward for everyone, like even him. I don't understand what I said to him with my eyeballs, but I did not say butter. I said, "Come cut up my lobster for me like I'm five." Anyways, then he brought me some butter and it was delicious. But yeah, so I definitely struggled a little bit with eating. I'm not too fancy. But other than that, everything went pretty darn smooth. So if you ever get an opportunity to do a quilting cruise, I would definitely do it. Like, it made the days just that much more interesting on the ship. I thought anyways. And I would definitely go again. Even though I got seasick, yeah, I would totally go again. It wasn't that bad. I've had worse hangovers. Okay. Well, that went pretty smooth considering I was telling a story about the lobster. I think I got that. Okay, I think I did. I think I got all that there. Yep, I think I did it. Okay, so what are my options here? So option one, I could like stitch along here, get in here and fill in this area. But then I'm going to have two lines here. So I think I'm just going to break thread. It'll just be faster this way. So I'm just going to put a couple stay stitches here, pull up my threads, and move to the next section here. Because I've already stitched this all in the ditch and stuff. So yeah, get all those snipped off. And I'll just move to here. So I'm going to be stitching live here until my battery dies. Or until the internet kicks me off. I'm not sure. Nothing's going too bad here. We're at 47%. We got lots of battery left. I'm not doing particularly dense quilting. You know, like the most dense is really these swirls. So I don't really feel the need to take a break yet. But if I was to be working on something more dense, like a mixed pebble design, which is kind of one of my go-to designs, then I would definitely be taking quite a few more breaks just to stretch and make sure that my shoulders weren't getting too tense. Custom quilting has a way of sneaking up on you and like putting a little bit more strain maybe than you think on your body. So it's always important to make sure that you're, you know, taking note of how you're feeling and like whether your hand is like getting crampy, because if your hand's getting crampy, that means you're holding on too tight, you know? And that means that you're flexing all the muscles, which means you're getting tense. So just, it's something to pay attention to when you're quilting. You know, and another one is also check your teeth. You know, if you notice that you're clenching your teeth real hard, you might need a break. You know, you can feel it kind of up in your shoulders as well. If your shoulders are feeling tight, you know, take a break. There's no reason why you can't take breaks. And it's the best part about having your long arm at your house. I mean, unless you're in a studio, or like a quilt shop or something, that's not necessarily as ideal, but you gotta take the breaks. Okay, so here's the bill. There we go. That's better. That's just eyeballing the spacing, you know? Oh, goodness sakes. Sorry, it's getting kind of cold in here. My nose is starting to run. It was -20 this morning. It's warming up though. I can, you know, the sun shines out, so it's got to be warming up a little bit. That's about -4 Fahrenheit, which is pretty cold. I mean, it's not like death cold by any stretch, but it's pretty chilly. One of my kids' cars didn't start this week. But of course, she doesn't go start her car until she's supposed to be leaving in like 10 minutes. She had to get a pickup from her dad, and she'd already missed the bus. That's my last kid in high school. She graduates this year, and that's it. That's all. I'll be done grade school. I've got one kid. No, that's not too bad. It's not too visible. I've got one kid going to, well, this kid, this graduating kid, is hoping to go to university in the fall, and then the other one, 2 daughters, is gonna go be a bum in Peru, so that's pretty cool. She's gonna go work on she's not gonna be a bum, I'm just kidding. She's gonna go work on a farm up in northern Peru for a while, and then she's gonna go do the Machu Picchu thing. Okay, so I'm done this swath. This whole swath is done. Let's take a look at it. Let's go like this. There we go. That's what it looks like. Oh, this is the pen that I use. My water soluble. Where is it? Carrying. I'm not married to this pen. I don't use just this pen. I use a bunch of different ones, but it's just the blue water soluble. These are not, it's not rocket science, you know, like blue water soluble is blue water soluble. Always check it, make sure it works for you, but yeah, I don't have a specific favorite. There we go. All right. Okay, so just in case anybody doesn't know, I'm having a hard time seeing comments. They're popping up and then they're disappearing almost immediately. So I'm going to come back and check them out at the end after the camera dies. But we might get this done. Okay, I'm going to just roll up, go to the next section. I'm working on a Handi Quilter Avante. So I don't have a ton of space, but it's the perfect size to do this quilt on. I actually quilt pretty large quilts on this little machine. I quilt lots of the big sort of Quiltworks quilts a lot. So when I've reached the bottom here, so here's the bottom border, and I'm just gonna see. I can quilt all this. I can quilt all that. I've got this much more space. And it's gonna be really close. I'm just gonna smooth this out. Yeah, I think I'm going to just quilt right here. I'm going to stitch this in the ditch and I'll come back and do the border after. Just make sure everything's all nice and smooth as it can be. With a pieced border like this, a pieced border could be, you know, really good because it's been measured correctly to fit, or mostly correctly to fit. Marsha's done a really good job. Like this should be pretty simple to smooth out and get to go with a minimal amount of finagling with it. Yeah. Okay, so to start, I'm going to just ditch this area. I'm going to ditch around here and then up to here, and then I'll ditch the other side just to try and keep this as smooth and wrinkle free as we can. Right. Again, this is my favorite ruler. It's the Rocket Ruler by Cinnamon Quilt Company. It's just really comfortable in the hand. I really like this ruler. It's got beveled edges, so I can, you know, it's not sharp in my hand at all. A couple years ago, I tripped and fell into a fire pit, which, you know, wasn't awesome, clearly, but I caught the edge of the fire ring, like I caught myself. So you can't quite see in the video here, but I got a scar running across the palm there, and this one's a bit more visible. But a scar running across the palm here. So my palms are actually pretty sensitive. So it's nice to have like this beveled corner in my hand as opposed to a sharp edge corner. So yeah, kind of messed up my hands a little bit. Oh, I gotta go up a bit. See, I'm coming out of the ditch here, and it's because I'm pushed against the bar. Anyhow, but anyway, so I did land on the fire ring with my hands, and I burnt them real bad. It was actually rather horrific, but I saved my face, so that's good. Nobody wants to burn their face. See, we've got a little bit of excess fabric here, but I think this is going to be taken care of with the piano key. I'm not too worried about that. Okay, so if anybody wants to watch me quilt live again, I am starting to think about coming up with like a bit of a schedule for myself, but you know, like, do you want to see these little projects? I don't really want to be quilting like really big paper piece projects or, careful, stay in your ditch. Big paper piece projects and on live. Those are really expensive quilts, and I need to do what's best for my clients there. This quilt is a client quilt, but it's also a more simple sort of design, so it's definitely something I can quilt live and still, you know, have a little bit of engagement and not just stand and stare too much. So if you do want to see this, I can get maybe some projects together like this. It's kind of my thought pattern, but I don't know. Okay, so coming to the other side, I'm just doing a lot of smoothing and just being really aware of where my fabric's landing. I'm trying to keep things straight and square as possible. And I'm watching here too, because I don't have a ton of room. I only got this much here. And as straight as everything is, it's not very often that you get the perfectly straight quilt, which works fine for me because, you know, I'm not actually a very good piecer. Like, I'm adequate. I've been doing it for about 15 years, but I don't really care enough, which is bad to say, I know, but I'm one of those people who slaps her borders on. Like, I'm a long arm quilter and I still slap my borders on like it's no thing. Which I know is ridiculous, but it's true. So that being said, because I just slap my borders on and I don't pay a whole ton of attention, it makes me kind of a pretty good quilter because I know how to deal with all the bull crap because I make them like that. I'm just kind of getting all this stitch work done. I'm just kind of going with the flow here. You know, getting everything stitched down. Whoops. Okay, so this one actually came out quite a ways. You see, this came quite a ways out of the ditch, and I can't leave that. That's not good enough. So I'm going to take that out. I felt that wobble coming. So I'll just take a second, take it out to about there. This is my favorite seam ripper. It's a seam fix. And it's because then it's got this nub on it and I can just kind of rub these holes gone, or at least mostly gone. Go back to here. Oh, no, not there. No, not there. Right there. Okay. Okay. Start again. Oh, it's getting cold in here. There, that's better. Okay. I don't mind missing the ditch a little bit. You know, nobody's perfect, and like nobody's also going to put their eyeball like so up close to notice like a couple stitches just kind of falling out. It's not the end of the world, but something like that. That was kind of like, it was a fair ways out. I don't know if you saw it or not, but it was a fair ways out, and it wasn't, especially in a spot that's like so visible as right here. You know, that's exactly where the eye was going to be drawn to, and it would have been just a little bit too obvious. Sometimes like clients, they're not necessarily pressing everything, you know, perfectly in which way direction. So it is pretty common for, you know, people to fall out of the ditch unless the quilt is like 100% perfectly pieced, which those are hard to come by. Okay, so I'm just gonna get some of my marks in here if I can remember. Let's see. 1 1.5, 1 3/4. Yeah, that's what it was. One and a half, 1 3/4. Okay, I'm just gonna go do the other on the other side because I got all the tools out. 1.5, 1 3/4. The outside one was 1.5. Yeah, 1.5. Okay. 1.5. 1 and 3/4. Okay, and then this one was 1 3/4. 1 1 3/4. All right. So that's all the marking we need there. Okay. And now I'm just going to get my bigger, longer ruler. And I'm also going to put on my side clamps. So I definitely made sure to stitch out this kind of foundation, you know, ditching first. And now I'm going to add on my side clamps here before I forget. This isn't a huge quilt. There's not a lot of sag. Marsha's done a really good job putting her backing together. So the tension hasn't really been a huge issue on the sides of this quilt. Okay. This is the Quilted Pineapple 12-inch ruler. It's nice to have a long ruler along with a ditch ruler. Like if I would recommend to anybody with straight rulers, always have a ditch ruler. A ditch ruler is like a really useful tool. I love having a ditch ruler. This is my favorite, but any ditch ruler will do, right? They're all the same with all the feet. So ditch ruler is really important. And then having a longer ruler. Again, it doesn't matter what brand it is, but having a nice long ruler is really handy in the studio. I mean, I do like the Quilted Pineapple one because it has like a pile of extra markings, you know, so it's got all these up and downs, all these sideways, all these diagonals. So I do like this one a lot, but it's, you know, you got to work with what you got. If you got a different ruler, use a different ruler. There we go. Perfect, excellent, looking good. Okay, so now I'm gonna try and stick with this sort of diagonal line. I'm gonna try and keep my ruler sort of along that trajectory so that my blunt piano key inside here is pointing towards the center of the quilt. So I'm just gonna eyeball it and I'm gonna adjust it as I go. Like if I end up off by a little bit, nobody's really gonna notice. But I want to do, you know, the best job I possibly can. I can also kind of use this line to get started. It's on the same, it's parallel to this one. So I can use that just as a guide as well. Now I'm not pushing the machine with the ruler at all. I'm just using it to help me with my spacing and to keep my lines nice and straight. So I'm coming up and I'm actually like doing the bump by myself and then bringing the ruler in afterwards. I'm just kind of moving them both at the same sort of time. That's why it looks like I'm pushing it, but I'm not. I'm just going to adjust and keep it here. Try and get one in the top area. It's nice to have just one in the top because it just adds to the whole directionality of the design. So that's why I like to have one in the middle. If I end up with two, it's not the end of the world, but I do try and get one. Like up in one of the other ones, I have two, and it's not ideal, but it's the way it is. Okay, line it up. It's pretty good. I'm stitching in 12 stitches per inch, and I'm using glide thread. I've got glide white 1000 in the top, and then I've got glide cloud, which is a light blue color, in the bottom, and both threads are 40 weight. I kind of stick with that, with the glide 40 weight thread for the most part. Sometimes I switch to a 60 if I'm doing a panel or something. I try to just stick with one type of thread. That way I don't have to mess with my tension too much. Waste more time. This is a pretty small quilt, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm starting to get tired of swirls. It takes quite a lot of concentration to, you know, keep all the swirls like looking nice. So if I'm noticing that I'm getting too tired, or like my swirls are starting to be a little bit too inconsistent, I either like walk away for a little while. I need to go have a cup of tea or something, come back to it. Like that's when I notice I'm gonna need a bit of a break. It's the really any dense, repetitive sort of quilts. And maybe I am getting done. So this one got quite slim here, but it's not as much of an discrepancy for me to rip it out. I'm just going to pay a little bit more attention. Make sure that I'm not making too many mistakes. Traveling through this space though, I am trying to go up this way, and I'm going to curve around and then come back down and come back down into here so that I can move into the next area. That's the game plan. Whether or not I nail it, I don't know, but I'm going to try for it. Science, it's an art, so we can't be too harsh on ourselves for not being perfect all the time. And like any client who's paying you to do custom quilting knows this. They know they're not hiring a computer. They know they're paying for your skills. They know that, there's going to be some inconsistencies. I mean, nobody's piecework is going to be absolutely perfect. Well, maybe some people's is, but mine isn't. But most people's isn't perfect. So most people know that. Oh, sorry. My nose is just running quite a bit because it's getting cold in here. Swirls and the fact that everybody hates their own swirls. So don't get too hung up on it. I'm sure your swirls are fine. See how I traveled there just a little bit? I just wanted to kind of like break the chain a little bit so it looks a little bit more organic. That's why I did that. Knowing where to place your swirls comes with like a little bit of practice, honestly, and just continuing to fill in the area, Does cold weather ever affect my long arm? That's the first, okay, it disappeared. But does cold weather ever affect it? Yeah, I think it probably does. I try and keep, when I'm in here by myself and I'm not trying to quilt live, I've got some pretty loud heaters on. I only have to run them, during the winter time. And my contractor husband has assured me that he's going to have proper heat in here in no time. But it's been like, I don't know, 3 years, so we'll see how that goes. But I try not to quilt when it gets too cold. Like, it's getting cold in here insofar as, like, it might cause my nose to run, but, like, my fingers aren't too cold. Like, it's not frozen. But I think cold affects all machinery, really. I really wish I could see these comments. Yeah, maybe I'm gonna have to call Dave. So Dave and Susan don't live that far from me, so maybe I'll call Dave from Stitch by Susan's team and get him to come up here and run my cameras for me. That'd be wicked. Oh, that's just a little wobble. These are pretty big spaces to be filling. I'm happy I chose this particular design because I think it looks pretty impressive. You know, it kind of as a background fill. And I mean, it still is reasonably open. You know, I got a good spacing here. Like if I use my little dude tool, this is from Silly Moon Quilt Company. It's one of my favorites. You can see like I'm pretty consistent at around 1/2 inch. You know, maybe just a smidge below, which is pretty good. And I think 1/2 inch is a reasonable density. It's fairly tight, but it's not like pebble tight, you know? We're gonna put one more in here. But this type of design, like this design or like a concentric circle design or anything that echoes like this, you definitely want to have a little bit of like backtracking experience for sure, because you notice that I am doing a lot of backtracking on my own designs here, or on my own stitches. Okay. Oh, it appears I forgot to stitch this one out. That's okay. I'll get it when I do my swirls. Okay, so I'm gonna do this first. Now right there, like I could have gone a ton of different ways. Like I could have gone and done this or whatever, but I just made a decision and I went with it. Breaking thread because you backed yourself into a corner just is not the end of the world. And anybody doing custom quilting just needs to get over it. You know, we this is what we do. So here's an interesting thing. What I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to swirl instead of do the piano key in here, because I personally like to run my ruler this way. Like I like holding my ruler this way and going that direction. So, and I have the opportunity. Can I go this way? Could I put the piano key in like this? Yeah, I could. But I could also just fill this in with swirls and come back to it. So I'm going to do that because I feel more comfortable with that. Now, since I'm feeling more comfortable, I will put this in. And again, I'm paying attention to this line here and keeping my ruler parallel with that line there. So if you've just randomly stumbled across this live, please go subscribe to my YouTube channel. I got lots of custom quilting videos on there. Apparently, I'm quilting live now. Who knew? Guys, this looks awesome. I'm so happy with it. Sorry, I just had to say it. I like the way this looks. Okay, so now I think I'm going to do some continuous curve because I don't feel like doing more of that. I want a bit of a break, so I'm going to go to continuous curves now. Okay, so I'm just going to take a quick second to remember what I'm doing. Oh, yes. Okay, I remember. See, I'm at the bottom of the quilt, and now I've got a really good quilt path. Every single time. I could probably actually move it here too. Nah, I'm just gonna do one at a time. I'm just asking for trouble if I go further. You can see like I've got a little bit of excess fabric along this seam line, but I think that's all gonna mostly disappear. And plus, once this quilt is washed, like it is a baby quilt, so once this quilt is washed, that's not gonna be a very big deal at all. It'll do its quilty, wrinkly thingy. I like to use a ruler for my continuous curve, clearly. It's mostly due to OCD. I like the way it looks better. I really like using rulers too. I find it pretty entertaining. I can achieve relatively consistent results without a ruler, but just my own hubris wants me to use a ruler in order to get it looking even better. And that is most definitely a hubris issue. I like it to be perfect as much as possible. Like, I'm not a freak show here. Hopefully I'm not a freak show. Funny. This looks good. Okay. Those are more of a guideline than a rule. These long lines can be pretty tricky, and they definitely take some time to get pretty good at doing a long line like that. And if you are struggling doing a long line, just draw it. Like, just use your marker and just draw the line. You know, that way if you do fall off track a little bit, you're not gonna, have to pick it out and retry and pick it out and retry. Just draw it. Make your life a little more simple. I've quilted quilts that have taken longer to mark than they have to quilt. So that's not uncommon. Okay, so I'm going to put this piano key in at this angle that's parallel to the angle pointing to the center of the quilt again. Doing my best. I'm going to adjust as I go, just in case. I'm working at 12 stitches per inch on a Handi Quilter Avante. Bit of an older machine, but who's young, right? It still works exactly as intended. Still trying to keep as parallel as I can with this blue line here. I think I'm doing an okay job. So I sent the link to watch this live to Marsha, who is the maker and owner of this quilt, and I hope she enjoys watching it. I think she's at work today, so she's not watching live right now. But I hope she enjoys watching it. And I hope she can't find any of the mistakes that I've made. They're little mistakes. And I took out the ones that I thought super noticeable. Alright, so this is the last big section. I really like these blunt swirls. I think I mentioned it earlier, but this blunt swirl I think is a really good design that goes with this blunt piano key. I think they look really good together. They kind of echo that whole sort of theme there. The skinny one, that's okay. It's okay. Back on track. Is anybody else getting dizzy? Just kidding. I'm not dizzy. I'm a little So I'm not actually planning to get anywhere, like to end anywhere, because I can't really reach anything else. So I'm just gonna let this flow and just end where it ends, because I'm gonna break thread at the end here. Anybody who's new here at all, I'm so sorry. I can't read any of the comments. They're popping up and a little too fast and then disappearing for some reason for me. This is my first live, so I haven't quite worked out all the bugs or the kinks yet, so I'll see what I can do next time to make this a bit better. If there is a next time. I'm just kidding. I'm probably going to do this again. I'm quite enjoying it. Do anything too complicated on here, not just for my sake, but also because sometimes I have to sit and look at something for a couple minutes before I move on with a particular design, as I'm sure we all do. This is looking good. I'm happy with the consistency here. I think that the size is just right for this. It's working well for me. Thanks so much for watching. I'm just thrilled. One of the things I can see is I can see how many people are watching. I can see there's 57 people here, and that is just awesome. I'm not gonna lie, I was scared there was gonna be like one or two, which I mean I still would have quilted it, but it's a little bit nicer knowing that people will watch it. That's encouraging me to probably do this again. Most likely do this again. not a day, but like this design has a day. There, that looks good, I think. Pull up my bobbin thread, a little tug here, and snip her off. Okay, looking good. So one last piece here to do, one last this to do. I think I'll just do this first. I kind of want to get that done. This is like, I'm reaching that point in the quilt, you know, where it starts to feel like I'm almost there. You know, I'm getting pretty excited. Like I'm excited to finish it. I want to take it off and take a look at it, sort of thing. You know, it's all really starting to come together now. I like this moment. So even though I do have a little bit of excess here, I'm not gonna pay super attention to it. I'm just gonna let it naturally go where it goes, because I've got this fairly dense swirl happening, and I think that's gonna really take care of a lot of that fullness that's right along the edge there. That's just fine, eh? Got a little closer there, but this So knowing that this was gonna look all right with that is a little bit of an experience thing. The more you quilt, the more you're gonna see. I mean, it's just like anything. The more you do it, the better you get at it. So if anybody in here today hasn't done a lot of custom quilting or is thinking about doing custom quilting, you just gotta get in there and do it. You know, like just get stitching. You'll get better as you go, just like everything, just like everyone gets better as they go. Okay, so I'm kind of at a bit of a quandary here. If we want to look at thread path or anything, I should probably come in and put this dot to dot in, or I could come and do this continuous curve. I'm not going to get hung up on this too much. I just want to get this piece done. So I'm just going to do this, break thread, and come back. That just is working better for my mental health. Does that make sense? God, I never thought I'd say that. Anyhow, it's just what I feel like doing, and so I'm just going to do it. You know, I've been quilting for a couple hours now. I like to take a break from quilting every few hours. You know, just to give your head a rest. I mean, it's kind of hard being, like, paying so much close attention to detail for a long period of time. So it's really good to take a break. And I am definitely starting to feel tired. So I'm just going to do what feels good and, yeah, make sure I get through this really well. I'm just break thread. Oh, see, no big deal. No biggie at all. Pull this up here. Okay. Oh, I forgot to put that one in. That's okay. That's okay. See, I should have put this one in. That's all right. This is the last one, and I kind of know where I'm going now. If you weren't here at the beginning when I started, I messed these up at the very top. Like, it was pretty funny. I thought it was kind of funny. I had to take out some stitching, but oh well. It's just kind of part of the job. It's kind of, it's just that slow custom quilting again. Ooh, sorry. Get this in here. Get. Almost missed it. But didn't. There it is. All right, the whole center is done. All we got to do is finish that piano key border with that little triangle design in it. Okay. And then we are good to go. Okay, got that. Let's take a look. See, where is the top? There's the top there. Okay. I am going to stitch or baste this side now and come down. I do have some fullness in this border, as you can see. It's not a lot, and I'm pretty sure my piano key can eat up this fullness. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to baste down the two sides, bring that piano key, down to about here. Then I'm going to come back to the other side and run the piano key across the bottom is how I'm going to do this. So try and keep this fullness kind of right here where it is. Oh, and I'm going to take this side of that off while I'm working with this. So when I based the edges, because I was floating this quilt top, I'm going to go from the bottom to the top, just because sometimes when you're always coming down, you're kind of pushing all of the fullness down, and you don't really want to do that. You want to keep the fullness kind of where it belongs, and that way, you can kind of work a small amount of fullness into something, not a larger amount. Okay, see? There's just a little bit right there. The nature of this, it's just going to kind of level itself out there. And I mentioned earlier, I like to use a ditching ruler to do my basting, and that's because I ran over my finger once, and it was a terrible day for everyone involved, which was me. I was the only one involved. I guess the quilt was involved too. All right, I'm just going to put this other clamp back on and go do the other side. I probably could have just put that piano key in since I'm right here, but it's no biggie. I'm just going with the flow. Today, it's not a very big quilt, so I'm not feeling like a ton of pressure to, get as much done today as I need to. It's clear that I'm going to finish this quilt. So I'm just relaxing and enjoying the process. Make sure I get my yardstick up here. Broken piece of trim, whatever it is. There's a lot less fullness on this side, eh? All right, there we are. So I'm just going to throw this piano key in. Oh, and I got to mark my triangles. I forgot. That would have been a disaster. This is my do tool. Oh, I love this thing. Okay, so I'm marking up 3/4 up here. I'm marking 1 inch down the center line, And I'm marking another 3/4 here. And that's so that when the binding goes on, it doesn't cut off my design. That's the idea. I'm just gonna go over and mark the other side since I've got all these tools out right now. And I'll mark the bottom after. Now I have that feeling in my gut too. I don't know if anybody else gets this feeling that my bobbin's running low. I kind of think it might run out. I think we're playing bobbin chicken right now. I can't remember when it ran out earlier, but I think, although it might not have been a full bobbin, I can't remember. Yeah, I don't know, but I kind of have that feeling. I got that sense that my bobbin's empty. Okay, so my piano key that's in here, which is really difficult to see, I know, is 3/4 of an inch and then 1/4 of an inch. I like this particular spacing because there's enough of a difference between the two sizes of lines, between 3/4 inch and 1/4 inch, that it's obvious that I'm doing it on purpose. When you're doing a piano key and you only go 1/2 inch by 1/4 inch, it might look like you've kind of messed it up, you know, because they're only 1/4 inch difference between them. So it's nice to have like a bigger degree of separation when you're with your piano key. And you can go up to like a whole inch, like 1 inch and 1/4 inch, 1 inch and 1/4 inch, and then it's dead obvious what you were doing. Just something to keep in mind if you are struggling or wanting to know more about piano keys. Okay, so I think I'm actually going to stop there because there is a little bit of fullness right here. So I'm going to stop and I'm going to go to the other side, come down to about the same spot, and then I'm going to roll so that we can complete the bottom border at the same time. So we got all the fullness all at once. Ooh, goodness sakes. So now, like, I can feel the end of the quilt coming, like I was saying, but I also need to make sure that, you know, I'm still doing a good job and paying attention. I don't want to lose the focus right now either, right? If you do feel yourself losing focus or kind of making some mistakes or something like that, you want to make sure that you stop, go take a break, have some lunch or something. Oh, nice. There's more line there. It's a sunny day outside. I've got a really nice window in my studio here that helps me with this awesome lighting. Even though you can't see very well now because it's bad light. But it's a beautiful, beautiful day. Even if it is stinking cold. See how like this fabric's being eaten up by this piano key? I think it's gonna be just fine. I'm not gonna have to worry about it too much. There's definitely more fullness down in the corners, but that is a couple minutes from now, Sam's problem. Not right now, Sam's problem. Piano key on like 3/4 of it's just so versatile, and it's such a good design when you have to square up quilts and stuff, because you can cut off part of it and it's not going to like influence the rest of the designs. And I think that's kind of an important thing to think about when we are doing, you know, borders. Okay. Just because I have to say it, my online course is all about borders, modern quilting with rulers. I talk about measuring the borders and how to divide the borders up to create geometric and structured borders. I'm just taking off the clamps right now, and I'm going to roll up so I can stitch down the bottom border, because we're getting to the bottom. But I do a ton of this style of quilting in my course. I teach you how to use like dot-to-dot quilting and arches and circles and all kinds of ruler stuff. Since this is my live, I can plug it the way I want to. Okay, so I've got enough room here. And I'm just gonna double check, because like sometimes, you know how the corners can sometimes like come down if the quilt isn't perfectly straight. It gets pretty good. Let's take a look over here. Oh, it's really good. Marsha, not too bad, girl. Not too bad at all. Marsha did a good job putting this quilt top together. Really nice. This has not been a struggle whatsoever. In my presentation, I've got a presentation that I do that's all about QuiltWorks quilts and like how to quilt them and some techniques and ideas. But at the end of that presentation, I share with you the most difficult quilt I've ever quilted, even to this day. And it was a QuiltWorks quilt. And it had just some massive issues with excess fabric in the borders. And it was just a nightmare to do. But I share how I kind of was able to overcome that. Oh my goodness. So I got a bit of a problem. Oops, I'm attached still. I just have to use my clamps instead of the red snapper sort of side clamp. And I have to do that because the backing fabric isn't quite even. So anyways, but I'm not going to clamp that side right now anyways. I did clamp this side because I've stitched all of this out, so I felt it's fine to clamp right there. And I'm going to run this way first. I don't know why, but I always go left to right first. From the center out. It's kind of like one of those things I started doing and then I just never quit. So I do have quite a bit of excess right here. Just gonna take a look at it. I could probably spray it with some starch or something, but it's not very much. I think it's gonna come out actually okay. Nope, that's not a fold. That's just a wrinkle. It's not a fold. Yeah. Ta-da! Yay! That worked out just fine. So there's a little bit of like wrinkly fabric here. That's just it's gonna come right out when I put that piano key in. It's not gonna be a problem at all. Now, usually going right to left, sometimes I have some problems over there, but I don't think I'm going to on this quilt. I think it's going to be just fine. Same technique. I use my ruler here to help me just hold all the fabric in place so I don't stitch through my finger. Because I am not going through that again. Okay, and I'm paying attention to like what's happening kind of like over on this side, just making sure. And I am going to throw those side clamps on just because. Just a little I had to replace some of my side clamps with some hardware store sort of clamps. They're not quite as good as the ones you get with the machine. All right, here we go. Just moving in small chunks, just watching the fabric. See, I'm kind of pushing the fabric a little bit this way. There's a bit of a jump. Okay. Looking good. It's really important to take your time when you're doing this, eh? Don't get frustrated. Just go take a break if it's being a pain in the butt. And there it is. Oh, I probably didn't need to break thread here, actually. But I will, because I got to do some marking. So I'll just show you quickly, in case you weren't here when I started, just some of the markings that I'm going to put on this border. Now, because I do have the piano key running down and then across, I'm just going to mark a diagonal line from this corner to this corner, kind of like a guideline, so that when I turn the corner, it just is more or less seamless. Even if I don't hit this line perfectly, it just kind of keeps me, you know, it keeps me honest, you know. So I'm going to go put the same sort of line in this corner here. And then I'm going to mark my little triangles with the dude tool. And I'm just marking 1 inch down, and I'm marking 3/4 inches sort of up each side here. And that's so when the binding gets put on this quilt, it's not going to be cut off. My design won't be cut off. This is the Dude tool. It's by Silly Moon Quilt Company. I use it on probably every single quilt. I got like a little hook on my machine that it always hangs on, so it's nice and close by. Of course, I always put it back where it belongs. Just kidding, I don't always put it back. Dang it. But I try to always put it back where it belongs. But if you want one, you can use code Quilting Curve to get 10% off your order at Silly Moon Quilt Company. Because we're buddies. I do get a commission off that, just FYI. It's like $1. I don't do it for the money. Not that anyways. I do other stuff for money. Okay. Here. And here. Almost done. Almost done the marking. So I'm quilting until my phone dies, by the way. We're at 21%. I think I'm going to make it. I think we're going to get this. Gives me a good idea the battery left on my phone, eh? I think my jokes are getting goofy. I'm sorry. All right. Ruler. So I'm gonna do these triangles and this piano key, and that will be a wrap. I'll pull it off for you if you want to stick around for that. Held on very good. Can you see my whole thing shifting as I'm going? It's because this clamp kind of let go a bit here. I'll try putting it on the top. Sometimes if your clamp isn't holding on really well because it's getting old or whatever, clamping it over the batting as well, it just gives it more to hold on to. Gives you a little bit more life in them. See, my fabric's not moving anymore. Perfect. do prefer to use the red snapper side clamps as opposed to these big chunky ones. I mean, the big chunky ones have a place for sure, don't get me wrong, but I do like the other ones better. Okay, so here's my corner. Spot. Hit that corner. So see my excess fabric. I'm gonna come in from this side. There we go. Just very slight manipulation of fabric can actually go a fairly long ways. All right, sorry, I'm talking too much right now. Just trying to pay attention here. I'm so sorry, I'm sniffing a little bit. There we go. All right. I'm not entirely sure why my machine sometimes makes that sound. It just kind of chirps at me. It probably needs oil or service or something. If anybody knows, let me know in the comments, but otherwise I just kind of ignore it. Where's that? Oh, there it is. Kind of lost my line here a little minute. It's right there. Oh, yeah, my bobbin ran out. I knew it. I knew I was getting close to that bobbin. Oh, man. Okay. I gotta roll one more bobbin up. Okay, so I'm just gonna go put this on and then I'm gonna clean my machine. Just one sec. I'll just put this on and then we'll take a look at the quilt. Okay, so I've got my bobbin going. With the lights again. Let's take a look at this. It's looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. You can kind of see the fabric there. It's not too bad. Like I said, this is going to be taken up with the piano key, no problem. Remember, it was kind of like that up here, and it's not like that anymore. Kind of hard to see. Show you the back of the quilt. Absolutely, I'll show you the back of the quilt. You can kind of see a little bit of it right here. But you see, like, it is going to be really cool at the back. Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, I forgot. I got to clean and oil my machine real quick. Because I always clean my machine of all lint, if possible. And then I always oil it whenever I change bobbins. It's been a really good system, and it works for me. I just put like one tiny little drop of oil. I use like this little oily thing, and just one tiny little drop seems to just do the trick. I don't have any problems. I also make sure that I wipe down all of the back rails and all of the wheels on the back before I start quilting every quilt as well. Got my bobbin. How many stitches? Oh, sorry, I didn't quite catch that whole thing. The comments are popping up and disappearing super fast. This is my first live and I did not figure that out. Unfortunately, I think there's like a setting I have to hit or look at for a minute longer. So I'll make sure to come back and answer all the questions when I'm done. And so I can get back to you that way. And I'll try and make it so that the chat stays up the entire time for me next time. But if your question, I'm going to guess, is that how many stitches per inch I was using? And I am working in 12 stitches per inch. So, and that's my normal, but if somebody was like getting started at custom quilting, I would recommend somebody start at 10 stitches per inch because it is way easier to take 10 stitches per inch out than it is 12. And 14 stitches per inch is pretty crazy. You got to feel pretty confident about what you're doing if you're going to work at 14 stitches per inch. I am using glide thread. I pretty much stick to glide thread. I am using 40 weight in my top in the color white 1000, and in the bobbin I'm using glide 40 weight in the color cloud. You know, and I always have 2 different colors in. I don't change my bobbin at all, and that's largely because I've got my attention pretty much dialed, and I don't mess around with threads too much. Like I'm always using a glide 40 weight. Sometimes I switch to a 60 weight, but it's if I'm doing a special project or working on a panel or something like that, then I'll switch to a 60 weight. I don't know if any of you guys watch Stitch by Susan when she does her lives. She is probably the live master. She's a masterful quilter, especially live. I got to watch her on a boat recently. That was wicked. Anyways, she's got Dave behind her. So I've been talking to Dave. He kind of helps out and is the behind the scenes guy, making sure that everything goes smooth. I've been trying to convince my husband to do that. My husband's not interested at all. I'll be honest with you. He can barely run the TV remote, so that doesn't really surprise me. I also need him to fix the heat in this room too, though. Hey. All right, piano key. I'm still very happy with this choice. I mean, it's my go-to. If anybody's been around here for any amount of time, they know that a piano key is my go-to. Even though it is a real classic design, you know, straight lines, piano keyed. I mean, you can do so much to elaborate a piano key, you know, accentuate a piano key design. I mean, you can add pebbles and wavy lines and all of the fancy things that you want to it. You could add extra lines or, you know, change up the spacing. You could do all kinds of things with piano keys. And that's why I really love them. I think it's a super versatile design, and it's just like it's a classic, and it can go in modern quilts, it can go in traditional quilts. It's so versatile. Oh, we're moving along here, eh? Nice. Here's the middle. When I do piano keys too, it kind of depends on the quilt, how much attention I'm really paying to like staying dead true. So like you can use different lines on your ruler to stay completely, you know, horizontal or vertical, or horizontal depending on your orientation at the time, you know. But if you can see here, like this isn't quite straight, and this wasn't quite straight either. So instead of staying straight on the piece lines, I'm just staying kind of straight with more of these sort of piece lines, like more true to the actual adjustment of the quilt, if that makes any sense, instead of, because like these lines they look pretty straight. They're probably not though. You know what I mean? Like if I'm actually lining it up, you can see it's off by a little bit, but that's not going to be so visible to the eye. Plus I'm working in a pretty busy fabric. So, you know, if I spend all that time making these lines super perfect, it's kind of just a waste of my time. You know, because you're never going to see this. If I turn on the real lights, you know, it almost completely will disappear without this diffused side light that I have. You're not really going to notice this design. And so I'm not going to waste my time, you know, making everything perfect. Plus, who's that straight anyway, right? Just kidding. Just kidding. Definitely working horizontal as opposed to vertical. Anybody who's been here for a little while today can definitely knows that it was much harder to see when I was working down the quilt than it is working horizontally across the quilt. And that is just the light orientation. I'm starting to come up to more of a fuller area, so I'm going to slow down just a little bit. Seem to just pay a little bit of attention, making sure that everything's going as planned. You can see, because kind of the way that this fabric is laying, it has kind of been pushed this way already, so I'm just making sure that I'm aware of it. I don't want to push it too far that way, because if it all gets scrunched up into one spot, that's no good. Oh, shoot. I'm going to take that out. I know it's not really that visible, but it's also not my quilt. This is a client quilt, and that's an obvious mistake. So I'm going to take that out. It's not a big mistake, but it is an obvious one. And it's so simple to take something like that out. Like, people need to not be afraid to take some stuff out. You know, if it bugs you, or if it is super duper wrong, you know, just take a minute, take it out. I mean, I imagine most people have spent a lot of time with a seam ripper. I know I have. I've spent an excessive amount of times with the seam rippers. There we go. That's the spot. So I'm just moving my ruler really lightly too. I'm not like pushing it down, you know, again, just to kind of try and manipulate this fabric just a little bit. And that's a wrinkle. It'll come out with just a little spurts of water, I'm sure. Yeah, we'll actually just give it just a tiny little squirt of water. Drop it. Just a tiny bit of water there, just to get that wrinkle out of there. I don't want it to be there forever. Okay. It's not soaking. here's the real problem spot. This corner here is where I saw the most fullness. But that worked out just fine though, eh? Like that turned out fine. I'll definitely make sure to spend some time getting that chat sorted out. I'm not gonna lie, I feel it's really weird just standing here talking to myself the whole time. I don't think it's supposed to be like that. Okay, coming up to the corner. Paying attention to the fabric here. There we go. That's gonna come together just fine. For sure. Oh yeah. Sometimes when you're doing a piano key in like a border like this and you've drawn this diagonal line, it's not going to line up perfectly, and that's pretty normal. I just want everybody to be aware of that. It is something I talk about in my online class a little bit. You see, I go up a couple stitches above that. It never really lines up. It's not supposed to. It's supposed to be a guideline to help you create, you know, this particular design, like to make it look right. Oh, this is the last white triangle. I love it when it's like the last, you know, one of the elements. That's always one of my favorite moments. Start the snow plow. Okay, so here's where it's going to be a little tricky again too, because I've got my last line right here, and like, how do you match up this piano key to that piano key? You don't. You fudge it. I'm not going to lie. Like, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you guys. I fudge it. That's how I do it. I kind of eyeball the last couple ones and see if I can try and space it nicely. One little mistake there is not the end of the world. So that is my, that's the trick of the trade here. You just you can't go and measure every single border out and place the piano key perfectly into it. Okay, so I'm just kind of eyeballing this. I can see I've got about this much space. So I'm going to go up maybe just a little under 1/4 inch and do my best to just kind of like 3/4. Yeah, actually it might fit perfectly. Who knows? It's not going to be perfect, but it'll be pretty close. See, I'm going to go a little bit more. So there's the line there. That's where I should be. But if I go up a little bit more, almost a 1/2 inch, that'll look better. There it is. So that's it. I think that was the last stitch. All right. That's the quilt. We're all finished up. Oh my goodness sakes. We got battery left. How much battery I got left? We got 13% left. Okay, I'll go quick. I'm just going to remove this, remove that. Now, usually I would remove all my marks right now from my quilt and then let the quilt just kind of hang on the frame to dry. But I know you guys want to see it, so I'll take it off and we can take a look at it. Here, I'm going to take it off here though and turn it about. Hi. Okay. Well, where's this? There we go. Hi. Okay. I'm going to keep the lights off too, just because you can see the quilting much better with the lights off. Turn that off. I had lots of backing fabric on this one. And I do use red snappers too, by the way. I love red snappers. Okay. I am going to take pictures of this. I'll put it up on Facebook and stuff too, so you can see it. And there she is. Can you see that? Kind of. I think it looks awesome. Let's see. Can you see there? Not really. Just going to turn this around. Maybe. There we go. There we go. I think it looks awesome. I'm really happy with that. Here's with the lights on, which it's still pretty visible. I love white on white. It just really shows a lot. Okay, now I know you guys wanted to see the back of it too, so just give me a sec and I will get, here it is. I'll flip it over so you can see the back, because I think the back is going to be quite impressive. Oh yeah, that looks cool. That looks very cool. You can kind of see it. Oh, I'm gonna do this again. Switch. There's the back. So if you see a mistake, keep it to yourself. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm not kidding. Yeah. Yeah, I think that looks really cool, eh? Yeah, that star is super visible on the back. I like it. I like it a lot. Okay, so I guess that's it. My phone's going to die very soon. It kind of gives me an idea. So we can go 3 hours, 34 minutes approximately, whatever. Thanks so much for being here. I'm going to read through all the comments. I'm going to try and answer all your questions. And also, like, subscribe, check out my course if you're interested, if you like my style of quilting. Check out Silly Moon Quilt Company and Stitch by Susan for sure, because she's definitely somebody who inspired me to do this whole live thing. All right, well, thank you so much. I'm going to sign off. Bye, guys.